Thanks, Lucy. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and talk to you guys about Sky Metals, and we're developing large-scale tin systems in New South Wales, and very importantly to feed global electrification. So what we can see there is a drone photo already over the old Tullabung tin mine, and just a quick disclaimer there, just a quick overview of the company, our board, very experienced, capable people in New South Wales who have been head of a number of mining projects. And then one of the key things on this slide is that we've already engaged Corkeries, who have been involved in a majority of the mining approvals in New South Wales in this last year. And 2023 saw about 5 mines approved in New South Wales. So it's definitely a state ready for new mining. So just to talk a little bit about tin, unlike talking about gold and copper, not many people know a lot about tin. And when you do talk about tin, this graph comes up a lot. So the key thing here is that tin is ubiquitous throughout all modern technology. And this means that as we make a move to global electrification, that more and more we're going to need more and more tin. And because it's ubiquitous through all of these technologies, it outstrips all of these other metals. And it's the silver bits that you see on solar panels. It's the solder in a lot of technology. So in a lot of ways, it's a proxy to AI as well, as we need more and more computing power. So it's a very, very important technology at the forefront. And the tin price itself, it's worth 3 times as much as copper. At the moment, it's sitting quite steady around that 40,000 Aussie mark, and going up a little bit at the moment with some concerns in Indonesia. One of the key things about the tin price and the tin market is that tin itself, the tin price is inelastic. So if the tin price goes to $100,000 a tonne Aussie, everyone's still buying tin because you can't replace it as a solder, and your microwave's still going to cost $40. So everyone needs tin. It doesn't matter where the price goes, there's no replacements. And so it's a very open to the upside for any producers. There's also a very shaky supply situation for tin, where a majority of it comes out of China. About 20% of the world's tin comes out of Indonesia. Indonesia currently using a lot of offshore dredging and things, which is becoming increasingly embarrassing to the Indonesian government. And the Indonesian tin exports in the last couple of months have actually dropped 99%. So Indonesia's effectively no longer producing any tin. All of the rest of the countries there, Myanmar included, they're no longer exporting tin because they've had some political unrest. So it is a very shaky supply, and that's where Sky Metals comes in, looking for ethical and reliable supply. And where Sky Metals comes in is our historic Tullabung tin project. So Tullabung's pretty much right in the middle of New South Wales. It's not far from the actual geographic centre, and it is a big old tin mine. So what you can see in that aerial photo there is all of the alluvials taken off through the 1960s and 70s, but tin was actually discovered in the 1890s. And because of its really favourable metallurgy, it was very successfully mined right up until the 1980s. And this represents, being a historic site, it represents a lot of shortcuts for us. So there's power lines already to site, there's haul roads already coming in. So for us, we plug into this old infrastructure, and it represents us getting into production quickly, having these shortcuts ready to move quickly on. And because of the nature of the deposit, a lot of the historic hard rock mining hasn't actually exploited a lot of those hard rock resources very far. The veins themselves that they would have been mining are quite discontinuous. And so that hard rock resource underlying this large historic alluvial deposit is in place, and that's what we're exploring now. So this is a drone footage looking up north through the deposit. You can see the outline of the old open pit in orange, some of the old ROM dumps, and then the tailings dam out the back there. And the red outline is our current resource outline. So we've explored so far a very small footprint of what is a very, very large tin system, and there's a lot further for us to expand this resource into. If there's one thing to take away from this presentation, it is that Tullabung represents what can be a very low-cost tin producer, and the things in its advantage are that low-cost mining, you've got tin veins outcropping at surface, they're shallow dipping as well, so they're very favourable for a nice open pit. Exceptional ore sorting upgrade. Ore sorting has been an absolute game changer for this deposit. It's exceptionally suited for this deposit, uniquely so, and it upgrades the resource 5 times, and we get rid of 80% of mass, which means that 80% of what we mine we don't process, which means our processing plant has to be 1/5 of the size, and our operating costs through the processing plant are 1/5 of what they would be otherwise. So there's big reductions in there. The actual processing itself, the guys who discovered this in the 1890s were gravity processing the tin here and making a concentrate. We're using the same process now. So it's a very simple process to do. It just uses water and spirals and things. It's very straightforward and it's very, very low cost. And then once we make that tin concentrate, we see a very high payability. So a 50% tin concentrate sees over 95% payability. We're looking to make an over 60% tin concentrate, which often can see around 98% payabilities. So you're looking at a concentrate that has twice as much tin in it than a copper concentrate, and then it's worth 6 times as much. So it's a very valuable thing that we end up coming out with. And then now looking at the resource itself, so far we've defined 15.6 million tonnes at 0.15% tin, and we're looking at an exploration target of 23 to 32 million tonnes. But the real key thing here is the ore sorting upgrade, which we take 0.15% tin and we upgrade it to over 0.7% tin. For people unfamiliar with the value of tin, 0.7% tin's worth over 2.5 grams per tonne gold and over 2% copper. So it's a very, very valuable metal, and we're seeing it in good quantities when we upgrade it through the ore sorting. And then importantly, of course, this resource remains open in all directions, and we've got a maiden indicated resource as well now. So why is the metallurgy so good at Tullabung? It just comes down to how the tin has been put into the rock. So this is a picture of one of the tin veins at Tullabung, and you can see that we've got very coarse black cassiterite grains there. The cassiterite grains have a density of about 7 tonnes per cubic metre, and then the other rock around it has a density of about 2.7 tonnes per cubic metre. So there's a huge disparity between these two. And then we use X-rays to effectively measure the density of the rock passing through the ore sorter, and then the denser rocks that have the tin in it, those rocks get ejected and everything else gets rejected. And then just through using that simple process, we are able to upgrade the ore by 5 times. And the incredible thing as well that we're seeing at Tullabung is the recoveries through the ore sorter. We're effectively losing no tin. At the moment, we have a 98% recovery. That's calculated on the fact that our waste is below detection limit for the tin assay. So we use the detection limit to calculate how much tin is in there, but quite likely it's a lot better than that 98%. And then, as mentioned, that's getting rid of 4/5 of the mass. So we only need to build a plant that's 1/5 the size. And all of that means reduced CapEx, reduced OpEx, and makes us a very low cost producer in the future. So this is a video here of some of the Tullabung ore running through the ore sorter. So it goes over this mesh, makes sure there's nothing too small, gets sped up to 3 metres a second, it runs along this belt, goes underneath the X-rays, and then on the right-hand side of this, you can see the air jets flicking off the rocks, and on the left-hand side is the waste that's getting rejected, and the ore's on the right-hand side. So you can see the massive mass that's getting removed through this simple process, and that means that all of that really reduces our plant size and how much we need to process, and incredibly we're seeing no tin at all coming through in that waste. So having a close-up look here at the waste, any geologist in the crowd will be able to say that scientifically that is boring grey rock. There is nothing doing in it. You don't want that, it's boring as. When you go over to the other side, to the ore, you can see it's shiny, right? That's the rock we want. So the ore sorter is doing a terrific job. They're picking those up, splitting those, and then doing an incredibly effective job of concentrating up our tin before we even start in the processing plant. A very robust, proven technology these days. These days it's a mature technology in tin ore sorting. It's been in Australia's largest tin mine, Renison, for over 5 years now, working 24/7. There you can see the 2 ore sorters installed in Renison there. These things, when we went and visited Renison about sort of 6 months ago, these have been the only innovation at the Renison tin mine for about the last 50 years. And they sing their praises. They can't believe how much good these things are doing. The Renison ore is incredibly complicated. It's a fine grain cassiterite. It's dispersed through the whole rock. It's a very tricky ore deposit. And it's incredible that the ore sorters work at all, to be honest, but they're working incredibly well. And the encouraging thing for us as well is that when they started using this technology and started looking at can ore sorters work, they were seeing a 10 to 15% mass rejection. When they installed them, after about 6 months, they actually increased that to 20 to 25%. So these things worked better when once installed and you had dedicated metallurgists looking at how to operate them properly on the ore. And unlike Tullabung, Renison is a very tricky deposit, but Tullabung's ore is absolutely perfect for this technology, and that's what our work is showing. TOMRA itself is a global business in New South Wales. If anyone's been to a return and earn, that's TOMRA. So their big business is actually recycling, and mining is a small part of it. But already they've installed 232 ore sorters globally. It's a massive mining business, and they're across the globe in a lot of operations, including tin. One of the world's largest tin mines, the San Rafael tin mine in Peru, they have ore sorters, and that takes some of their grade on the margins that they wouldn't be able to process otherwise. That upgrades it, and they can put that through the plant then. So it's very important in the San Rafael mine. It's very important down at Renison, and there's a number of operations throughout the globe that are beginning to use this technology, and it's a very mature technology now, and it's really the right time and right place for Tullabung and this technology. We started learning about ore sorting probably in 2021, and it was in the back end of 2021 that we got together a sample of Tullabung ore, and realising it was, from what we understood, absolutely ideal for ore sorting, we sent it for some initial test work, and we took a 0.19% tin sample and we upgraded it to over 0.7% tin. Then we followed up with a bulk sample. We got half a tonne and we said, does this work if we run a big chunk through it? So we did some high grade stuff there. We took a 0.29% tin sample and we took it up to 0.89% tin. We saw that 98% recovery coming up, and that's through a very large sample. So we have a very big sample size here to back up that. And then we wanted to know, does this work through the entire deposit? So we took samples from different depths across the strike, and all across the deposit. We put these samples, we ran them through separately through the TOMRA, and that's where we see, on average across the deposit, we see an over 5 times increase in grade. We see, again, that consistent over 98% recovery. We're pretty much seeing no detectable tin in the waste. And then we're seeing that 80% of mass rejected. So this is showing itself to be a really terrific technology for this deposit. It's a mature technology in tin, and it's just the right place, right time for Tullabung. As I mentioned before, once it goes through the ore sorter, it goes through a very conventional, straightforward tin circuit. As I said, this would have been used by the old timers back in the 1890s to make tin. So very straightforward process to then get ourselves that saleable tin concentrate. And then in terms of the deposit itself as well, we do have some higher grade zones here. So we've got 60 metres at 0.5%, 60 metres at 0.3% tin. These are all in this higher grade lozenge that we see pretty much in the centre of the deposit. It's close to surface, and yeah, look, I only did a couple of years of mining engineering, but already you can see that that's where you'd start your pit, and that's where you'd want to get this deposit going from. So we have a nice high grade area that can mean that we have quick payback on capital. And then already we're seeing some easy expansions to this system as well. There's still a lot of workings at surface that we haven't drilled under, but in addition to those, that little sort of blue outline there, that's our current drilling extent for the 23 to 32 million tonne exploration target. And then in green, you can see where we saw some rock chip samples down one of the old open pits. The veins in there are averaging over 2% tin, and no one's drilled under them. And then we drilled a couple of groundwater monitoring bores to start our environmental permitting process. These were planned to be well outside any conceptual open pit. It would be embarrassing if we weren't happy about it, but we did hit some tin in those as well. So it's a very extensive system, and both of those have more than doubled the width of the mineralisation in those areas. So some significant expansions to be tested and to get this deposit into very, very large. So this is just the drone footage now running through the old ROM, up over the machinery shed and into the southern lead of the old mine. And our next steps are very, very straightforward. We need a bit more drilling to get this resource up and get to what we think is a critical mass for mining. We'll work more on those high-grade zones, finding more high-grade zones and getting those into indicated so that we have some good early stuff for mining. Some more bulk sampling as well. We're already improving on the processing that we're doing on this exceptional deposit, but we think we can make more improvements with more work, and we'll continue to strive for that because that is crucial in making this such a low-cost project. And then on the back of these works, we'll be releasing our mining studies, feasibility things, and we're already going through commencing our mining approvals and things as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ollie. What an exciting tin project. Any questions from the floor? Maybe I'll start with a quick one while you're warming up. So, Ollie, what are the plans for the next, say, 6 to 12 months?
I think ideally we'd really like to we'll get a bit more drilling done. That will get us to this critical mass of a resource. And then from there, hopefully in the next sort of 6 to 12 months, we can start releasing feasibility studies and things. And these are obviously crucial for us to begin communicating to the broader market about how economic we think the deposit is, how CapEx efficient we think it is, all of these advantages that are open to us thanks to that really unique deportment of the tin in that cassiterite.
Thank you. We've got one question up the back. Any others? Ian, here we go.
Thanks, Ollie. That seemed like a very surprising coarse crush that you're feeding through that tomera. Is the cassiterite really that coarse that it just gets flicked out? I mean, looking at those images, I would have thought you're losing 90% of your ore, but that's where I'm naive. Yeah.
Ian, I think you've probably been following us for a while, and you know that we did look at this deposit in 2019. And one of the issues we had is that we have these really high-grade veins. They can be running sort of 10% tin, but then you have about 5 metres of wall rock, and then you have another vein. And what the ore sorter is really doing is getting rid of that wall rock between the veins and then upgrading it. So that's it's sort of solved what we thought was the issue with the deposit, basically. And then, the cassiterite itself being so coarse just means that downstream processing then, we don't need to do a tin float, which a lot of tin operations do need to. I think you might know better than me, but copper reagents for copper floats are about $5 a kilo. The reagent for a tin float's about $14 a kilo. So it's a very expensive process. The chemical is quite nasty. And so if you have a deposit that can avoid that, it makes it much, much cheaper. And that's what we have given that coarse cassiterite.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question? What is the timing on announcing resources, and what sort of annual production do you think you'll get?
So the timing for a resource upgrade, we'll be drilling in the next month or so. Then we'll be drilling for a month or two. It'll take us a couple of months to get results. So maybe in 6 months' time we can have an updated resource, maybe a little bit longer. And then in terms of... sorry, I forgot what the second part of the question was. Can someone help me? Annual production. Some cleverer people than me will work out what will work best for us, but we're sort of hoping for an operation somewhere in the order of sort of 3,000 to 5,000 tonne of tin per annum. That would be, at the moment, Renison produces about 8,000 tonne of tin, and Metals X sees half of that. So we'd be a significant size producer in the Australian market, similar to Metals X.
Thank you. And last question down there.
There is a bit of interest. Obviously, given that the tin supply is very shaky, a lot of downstream users are looking upstream now to lock in supply. So So I think as we continue to de-risk this project, there'll be growing interest in that, but already we're getting some.
And one more.
Thanks, Ollie, for the presentation. Quick question. Have you reached a stage where you've got a reasonable idea of the source and the geological model for the cassiterite source?
I would really love to go on about how we found topaz in one of our deeper holes and things, but usually I don't get the ability to talk such geological stuff. But we did drill some deeper holes in 2019 looking for a tin porphyry system at depth. Some recent petrography on that, looking at those holes at depth, has actually found that we have topaz, which means that, for people who don't know, topaz means that we're getting deeper and hotter in the system. So we think actually we might be a bit closer to sort of that Gryson area where we may have a deeper, higher grade tin deposit. But we certainly can see that there's a granite underneath this deposit running a very large tin lode system. In that hole where we were looking for the tin porphyry, we actually just hit more of the tin lode system. So it just showed us that it's extensive for sort of 400 or 500 metres at depth. So,
Is there any tungsten with it?
there is a bit of tungsten, particularly as you sort of get a bit deeper in the system. We're sort of getting we do get sort of % tungsten hits, and we get a bit of zinc and we get a bit of silver as well. But very much we're focused on the tin, and those things are going to be sort of icing on the cake, if you like.
Okay, well, look, thank you so much again to Ollie Davies. Thank you.